Hello, and welcome to the Sunday Shout. I'm Paul Ellis, and joining me as usual is Johnny Martin. Hello, Johnny.
Hi, Paul.
We should start this week by mentioning Jack Warner's resignation as FIFA Vice President. He has quit all his roles within international football as well, and let's remind ourselves he was the man at the centre of the bribery scandal surrounding Mohammed bin Hammam's presidential election campaign. And it's good to see that he's out of football forever, Johnny.
It certainly is. We've mentioned his name several times in the previous podcasts, and he's a bit of a notorious figure. And as we mentioned about the BBC Panorama programme, exposed him for what he was and all the corruption allegations. And it's about time he went, and I'm glad to see that he's gone.
It's just amazing that a member of FIFA actually offered financial incentives to get votes for one of his friends. I mean, you wouldn't have thought before now that it would happen.
Well, you wouldn't think so, no, because you're an honest, hard-working person. And the vast majority of people are the same, do things properly the way they should be. But once you get into a position of power, what they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely was the phrase, I do believe. And once you get into that position, you find that you can feather your own nest while you're at it, and you can get away with it. And they've been doing it for years. We've seen it with MPs, the expenses scandal, and they're just the same. Once you get into that position, I'm not saying everybody is at it, but you get certain types of people who will take advantage of the situation for their own benefit, and Jack Warner was one of those people.
That's right. So I think it was good work from the Ethics Committee to actually discover what they'd been up to. There's been leaked reports this week saying that Jack Warner was an accessory to corruption. I think that just says it all.
I don't think he was an accessory to corruption. I think he was corruption himself. He wasn't just an accessory to it. The man was a disgrace.
Well, that's just a quote that came from the actual leaked report, but it also claimed that there was so much comprehensive evidence against both Warner and bin Hammam that they actually worked together in the Caribbean Union to bribe votes, and I'd say it's just completely unethical.
It's totally unethical, and if Sepp Blatter wants to reinstate any of his credibility, the best thing he could do would be recall the election for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. I mean, that's obviously not going to happen, but that would send out a clear message. We've discovered this corruption, we're not going to accept it, and we're going to declare the votes null and void and start again.
I think a lot of praise has got to be given to Chuck Blazer as well. I know Jack Warner's already accused him of undermining him, which in a slight way I can understand, because Blazer worked under him as CONCACAF General Secretary for over 2 decades. But I think it's their job, their responsibility. If they see any wrongdoing or any unethical behaviour, such as bribery or corruption within their own parliamentary movement, then they should flag it up.
Absolutely. Jack Warner's, he's not going to like to stand there saying he's been undermined. Well, he's only been undermined because he's corrupt. If Chuck Blazer was undermining him, trying to steal his job off him, then you might say, well, he's got a point, but he's revealed to the world what kind of person Jack Warner is, and, fair play to him. He gets a pat on the back from me.
Do you think he jumped before he was pushed, though? Because I do.
Warner?
Jack Warner, yeah.
Well, I think, he's probably been advised by somebody, say, save your dignity, quit rather than be sacked, sort of thing. Say he jumped before he was pushed. It was inevitable what was going to happen. So I think probably, he sort of said to himself, cut my losses and I'll get out while I can, sort of before my contract's terminated.
It's funny how he still claimed his innocence, though, despite, because I've read somewhere that he read the report from the Ethics Committee before, and then about a day later he resigned. So you can tell that you could tell that there's something going on, because you wouldn't just resign.
No, he wouldn't. Innocent men don't run, as they say. So, if he read the report and felt that he was, wasn't to blame, he wouldn't have gone anywhere. So he knows what he's done, and everyone knows what he's done. But, he's trying to save face by coming out and saying he's innocent, and he's not. It's a load of rubbish.
I think the worst part of it all is that FIFA decided to close all investigations against Warner, which is understandable given that the guy's resigned. But it's the presumption of innocence is maintained, is the statement they've made. To me, that's just FIFA merely sweeping it up under the carpet, and you can't do that.
No, yeah, I agree. The investigation should still take place. The investigation could reveal other sources of corruption as well, and I dare say it probably would. And it's easy for FIFA now. They can just say, well, the matter's closed, he's no longer an employee, and that's the end of it. And FIFA don't have to go through the rigmarole of investigating and revealing all sorts of things that they don't really want revealed.
I firmly believe that the whole of FIFA needs a massive reform and an overhaul. It needs clearing out. The corruption inside needs to be cleared. I question within that the judgment of Sepp Blatter and even the General Secretary, Jeroen Valk. You can't have a situation like that. Take it with a pinch of salt that they still believe that Jack Warner was innocent. Take his resignation like he was still a good, decent man. and then just turn around and say, well, that's the end of it.
It's totally wrong, and I alluded to the point just a minute ago. It's easier for FIFA this way because nothing gets exposed. As far as they're concerned, the matter's closed. Jack Warner's left his position, and that's the end of it. But I agree with you. The reform needs to take place, and the judgment of Sepp Blatter is ridiculous. The whole presidential election in itself was so corrupt. How can you possibly have an election with one candidate standing? It's absurd, and it's all been engineered by Blatter, and he's the man at the top. He has to shoulder all the blame for me.
I definitely have to agree with that. I think Bin Hammam's the next one to either resign or be removed. So I think that'll happen in the next few weeks. But you just hope that over that period of time that there will be some sort of reform and that FIFA cleans itself of all the unethical wrongdoing.
Well, you have to hope, but with Sepp Blatter, he's a man looking after his own interests there, and he's got himself re-elected for another term, and he isn't going anywhere, so he's going to do not what's best for FIFA, but what's best for Sepp Blatter. So I can't see much change happening in the foreseeable future, certainly while Sepp Blatter's still the president.
I completely agree with that. Moving on now, we should look into Hearts' rather bizarre Mafia claims on their club website. Don't even know where to start with this. They claim that, the Mafia, which equals outside influences, which include media and agents, are against their club, trying to put them down the league and affect their results. And, if you read the statement, Johnny, it's unbelievable what he's claiming.
It's bizarre, you just sit there, your jaw hits the desk and thinking, what the heck is going on here? It's such a bizarre claim to come from an official source. They've got to be fairly sure of what they're saying for them to publish that from an official source. It's crazy statements, but if they feel that there's some wrongdoing there, then they've got to back it up.
Well, I've already pointed the finger at one of the agents, Gary Mackay, who played over 700 games at Hearts, so maybe that was the wrong thing to do, but he's actually in charge of 3 of the 4 players on the books at Hearts, and one of them has been put on the sex offenders list. We won't mention any of the details because of legal reasons, but even so, Johnny, I can't see how he can come out making an official statement saying that everyone's against him, because I think it's completely untrue.
Yeah, it's just strange, you try and rationalise it, you try and think of something sensible to say about it, and you just can't, it's so bizarre. The statements that have been made. I guess they feel they've got a case of talking about Gary Mackay, and could it just be coincidence? Most probably is just a coincidence. It's just such a bizarre statement to be released. I can't quite get my head around it.
I don't think anyone can, to be honest. I think Gary Mackay will probably look for legal action against him because it's actually questioning his ethics as well. It's going back to the whole Jack Warner thing. His ethics and behaviour has been questioned by an official board, and maybe that he hasn't done anything wrong. It's just a matter of he's linked to 3 of the 4 players, and that's just coincidence, as you say.
Yeah, certainly, he's a man with integrity. He's a Hearts legend. 700 games for a club is a fantastic achievement, and then for your club to turn around and say that about you, it's got to hurt deep down. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was consulting his lawyer as we speak.
Well, I think just looking at a quote from the statement by the board just tells you everything you need to know. It says, each year we are forced to fight against these maniacs harder and harder. We are standing in their way, not letting them manipulate the game of football in the way they want. As such, they undermine us in every possible way they can. The task of the club is to tear these kids out of hands of criminals. I know they're Lithuanian, but even within that English, it doesn't make sense.
It's remarkably strange, Like you say, grammatically, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense when you read it, but it's so bizarre. You try and analyse it and you try and think what they're getting at, and it's just you just can't. You just got to hold your hands up and say, each to their own, and they're entitled to their opinion. If that's what they feel is going on at their club, it's their duty to stamp it out and leave it at that, I guess.
You would have hoped that they would have done that internally rather than actually voiced opinions to the whole of the media, because then that gets everyone involved.
It does, but they said they felt they've been doing it for the last 6 or 7 years or so was part of the statement. So it's been kept under wraps for a while. If they think this is the right time to go public, then that's their decision.